Roll call, please.
Mayor Calabrese,
Present.
Councilman Petrucci,
Present.
Councilman Getzey,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Sapp,
Present.
Councilman Pecora.
Present.
May I get a motion for approval of the minutes for November 16th, 2020, November 21st, 2020, and December 30th, 2020?
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion for approval of the minutes, November 16th, December 21, and December 30th of 2020.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second that.
Roll call?
Councilman Petrucci,
Yes.
Councilman Getzey,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sapp,
Yes.
Councilman Pecora,
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese.
Yes.
Minutes approved.
Is there any public comment on agenda items?
I have a comment.
Yes, please state your name and address.
Pete McQuillan, 227 Kansas Street, Verona, PA 15147.
Please go ahead with your public comment, and please do note that you are limited to 3 minutes.
Oh, it's very short. Tony Felino's project has a statement in there that says no parking on Colorado Street. And we park on Colorado Street all the time. And I need for funerals and for other purposes.
Is that the conclusion of your comment, sir?
Yes, it is. That's it.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on agenda items?
Well, I have a question for the manager or perhaps the director, Chris Blackwell. So in the event of, if this were to pass and there was a funeral or something of that nature, is there a means to make an exception?
If you would like me to answer that, I know Mr. McQuillan gave his address as 227 Kansas Street. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
But in light of the conditional use tonight, there you'll see there's also an ordinance on here for no parking on Colorado Street. And I don't know if, I know there was a lot of discussion at the Planning Commission meeting about this, but I'm not aware of being able to have, like, he has another business that occasionally, Pete McQuillan has a business that occasionally overflows onto Colorado Street. I'm not sure that you're able to have no parking for one group and not for another. I don't know that I don't think that's possible. I'm not, but I don't believe so. I think if there's no parking, it's no parking.
Thank you. Any further public comment on any agenda items?
Are you commenting on an agenda item?
I'd just like to know what resolution A is.
It's described. It's in the packet. It was online. It was online.
As I said, I didn't have internet.
It says what it said.
If Chris could expound.
He will. He probably will.
Yeah, whenever we get to the resolution.
Okay, so she said public comment on agenda item. That's an agenda item.
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
They need to mute themselves.
If you are making a comment on the agenda, please make it or not. You're not?
Is the resolution A?
You're asking a question. Do you have a comment on the agenda items? This is not question and answer. Do you have a comment on the agenda item?
New business resolution A.
Okay, we'll make your comment.
Okay.
Please go to the microphone, please.
Greg Swatchick, 648 Gramick Lane.
looking at the agenda under new business, number 6, resolutions A, maybe Chris, if you could just, I don't have the luxury of knowing what that is associated with. And I'd just like to know if you could give a quick blurb on the nature of that amendment. That's all. What it's targeted to, or in my interest, not targeted to, if you know what I mean. Thank you, Chris.
Mayor, is that okay if I answer this?
Yes,
Yeah, this is basically in July, mayor and council passed a resolution that reduced the interest rate on our rehab loans to 0 for all residents, for all participants. And also you may recall that we received COVID-19 funding money, and for year 46, we actually did not put rehab money in. We only used COVID. We put our rehab program under the COVID money. Well, we've had more budget amendments this year, I think, than ever before, and Sherry would attest to that. And what it is that we discovered later that our requirements, that most of the people that ask for rehab loans, they don't meet the requirements. These are senior citizens, or they're on Social Security. They didn't lose their job. They can't get a letter that's from their employer, things like that. So what's happened is the rehab program's been very successful. Meg Balsamico we've been doing a lot of loans. And so really this resolution here is just to transfer money so that we can continue with the rehab program for the rest of the year until we get new money in August. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you, Chris.
Sure.
Yes, Chris.
any other public comment on agenda items? May I get a motion under new business resolution 6A?
I'll make a motion under resolution 6A for resolution 2021-01, approving a minor budget amendment to the Community Development Block Grant CDBG program for FY 2020 to provide funding for the single family rehab program.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comment from council? Roll call.
Councilman Getzey,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sapp,
Yes.
Councilman Pecora,
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese,
Yes.
Councilman Petrucci.
Yes.
6A approved.
May I get a motion under new business 6B?
Mayor, I'll make a motion under 6B, resolution 2021-02, granting conditional use approval to Dino Felino for the construction of a private recreational/soccer facility to be located in the vicinity of Colorado Street and Hunter Road.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comment from council?
Yes, Mayor Calabrese.
Yes, Deputy Mayor.
I have a couple questions with regards to this, and I see Mr. Felino is on the line this evening. I would like to ask him why he chose to put the soccer field in Penn Hills. Mr. Felino, can you hear me?
He's muted.
Unmute your mic, Mr. Felino. Deputy Mayor, his associate Jacob Katz is here. Would you like to speak with him?
I'd like to hear from Mr. Felino himself first. I do see Mr. Cat on the line as well. He may be having some.
Can you hear me now? I'm back on if you can hear me.
Yes, Mr. Felino, we can hear you.
Okay, I apologize. I'm driving back from dropping kids off at some sporting events, so I apologize. I grew up in Penn Hills my whole entire life. I lived there until I was 20 years old. And I thought I've been looking for an area to bring a soccer facility to Western Pennsylvania. And I've spoken to a lot of clubs and stuff like that, and they're looking for this. And I thought it would be a great opportunity to bring it back to Penn Hills and kind of come back to where I grew up at.
Thank you. If there's no other questions at this time, Mayor, I'd like to ask another question to Mr. Foligno.
Yes, please, you have the floor.
You're welcome.
Mr. Foligno, can you tell me, do you have any drawings of what the prospective field would look like? Any plans, any specs prepared to give to Mayor and Council?
So if you don't mind, I can jump in. My name is Jacob Cat. I'm with Key Resources. We've been assisting with the development of the soccer field. So we did submit as part of this conditional application a couple of drawings, which included a site plan as well as a stormwater plan. Were those made available to you? Yeah, so that's currently the site plan sketch for what we're proposing, and then there was also a PCSM plan which showed grading on it. Again, not sure if available or not, but essentially the configuration would be coming in off of Hunter Road. You have an entrance drive with a paved parking area with landscaping and a buffer along Hunter, and then you would have essentially the two soccer fields to the northeast of those with some space in between and on the ends for bleachers and for just general access around the fields. We've gone back and forth, and I think that one of the things that we probably are going to include is a concession stand, which is not located or shown on this conceptual plan for the conditional use approval, but we will have we'll be back in front of you guys for a full land development application if we were to garner the conditional use approval, which would have the full detailed construction drawing set, which would include all site facilities in detail and at length. At this point in time, this is the general concept that we're looking to get conditional approval so that we can move forward with the completion of that full land development package.
Okay, thank you for that drawing. And you're calling it a recreational / soccer. Is it because you're adding the concession stands in that you're calling this recreational, or do you have a different definition for recreational?
In reviewing the ordinances of Penn Hills, we felt, and in talking to Chris Blackwell and some of the and Meg, we felt that the soccer fields as a facility fell under that recreational distinction when it came to zoning. So right now the property is currently zoning District C, which falls under the same rulings as the R1 district. Which does not have an approved use for recreational facility, for private recreational facility, but it is outlined in as a conditional use for the recreational facility is outlined as a conditional use. So that's what we're looking to try and garner with this submission.
Okay, and then I have another question. Were you able to get in contact with People's Natural Gas yet?
Yeah, we've been in contact with them already. They have a line that runs across the site. We've coordinated with them. They have submitted construction guidance and specifications for working over top of the gas line, but they had no objections to the proposed scope as we have it defined herein.
Okay, did you submit that report to Mr. Blackwell?
We didn't get a formal report. We certainly have an email chain back and forth between them as far as you're just communicating the project to them and what we're proposing and the information that they provided, but it wasn't a formal report per se, more just construction guidelines for fill placement over top of an active line. And moving forward, we'll be in close contact with them both through PA one call and just through general construction management.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
I have a question.
Yes,
ready?
Councilman Getzey.
This is an open question to whoever can answer it. The term granting a conditional use, what are the implications of a conditional use as what I would assume to be a permanent use? Why is it, what is it conditional mean? Can it be, is it for an amount of time, like 2 years? What are the implications?
I can answer that. In the zoning ordinance, there are various uses that are conditional uses. And basically what they are is like churches are conditional uses, schools are conditional uses, public utilities are recreational are conditional uses, and recreation facilities are conditional uses. And what that means, Councilman, is that there's no particular zoning for them. They're not like a school might be commercial in nature, but you want it in the neighborhood. If you know, all the Penn Hills schools are within neighborhoods. They're, presumably were within walking distance in the beginning when they were first built of people's homes. So, churches, they're kind of commercial in nature, but they're not businesses. So they're conditional uses in the residential district. Senior citizen housing, if you think of the big apartment building being built, Emerald Hills, it's a conditional use. It's being built in a residential district. It's not houses, but it certainly is reasonable that it would be located there. It's a quiet use. It's a use that fits in that neighborhood, in that area. So in this case, like this recreational facility, we have them permitted as conditional uses in residential districts. So if they wanted to build it, say, in a commercial district, you could say, oh, you could have a skating rink or something in a commercial district. But in this case, it's conditional use because it's reasonable that it would be located here, but it's with conditions, and the zoning ordinance actually spells out conditions for public recreational facilities, how many acres, what the setbacks are, and this project meets those conditions. And then in addition, the Planning Commission has given you, I believe, 9 additional conditions that they're saying are appropriate to allow this recreational facility to exist at this location without detriment to the neighborhood or detriment to the community or things like that. Does that answer your question?
That answers it, and I'd like to ask Mr. Foligno if he's agreeable to all those conditions.
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Any further comment from council?
Yes, Mayor Calabrese, I have another question. I haven't actually gone to that area to assess that prospective property. However, I see that it's going to require a lot of fill. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Working with the existing topography that's there now, in order to create a significant enough level plateau to house the soccer fields, we're just going to have to work with what's there now. It will require a little bit of cut and then quite a bit of fill. That's correct.
Okay. When you say quite a bit of fill, what's the best?
I don't have the numbers in front of me. I certainly could get them to you for our original estimate on cut fill analysis. It will depend on some conditions based off of whether or not retaining walls are implemented versus doing cut slopes and things along those lines. We can certainly provide a preliminary cut fill analysis. Actually, I think, hold on one second.
Mayor,
Further comment from council?
160,000 cubic yards is our preliminary estimate for fill for the soccer field construction.
Mayor, may I add something about conditional uses?
Yes, please do.
One other thing about the conditional use, I think that Mayor and Council, you wish that you could see more, like you were asking for more drawings, things like that. But the preliminary work that they've done here is actually pretty extensive, considering that we don't require someone to go through a full load of plans and all the drawings and the engineering until they get council approval. So once the conditional, so what's really happening tonight is the applicant is just asking for approval. You know, does Penn Hills want a recreation facility at this location? So then they'll come back to the planning commission, and the planning commission, that's where they're going to have every single permit and drawing and everything aligned. But at this point, it's unreasonable for us to demand that they, you know, go through the cost and expense of doing those things. So that's where, like Mr. Cat has the 160,000 cubic yards, and that's in their documentation. But it's really like those are estimates, and it's not like hard numbers, and they'll have that later on. Thank you.
And I'd like to ask another question. Is this,
Go ahead.
is this facility going to be limited to use by Penn Hills residents and teams, or is this open to the general public?
I can answer that. It'll be to a general public. There's, I believe Penn Hills itself has quite a few soccer fields on their own that they use for their club, or not for their club, but for their recreational leagues. As I've stated a couple of times to different people, we are willing to give time and donate time to residents of Penn Hills and to the recreational leagues to play at these facilities, you know, through different times. But for the most part, it'll be rented out to soccer clubs that'll be able to give, you know, close proximity to Penn Hills residents to be able to play at a higher level and learn a higher level of soccer.
Okay, thank you for the explanation.
Any further counsel from comment? I'm sorry, any comment from council? I would like to say that I love it. I think it is very exciting to think that we would have this new facility and it would bring people from outside of Penn Hills into Penn Hills, and they can see how beautiful we are. But I do have a question, and I'm not sure who could answer this or if it can even be answered tonight. So my question is, if we approve this and then we approve the ordinance of to no parking on Colorado Street, would there still be sufficient parking available so that we don't hinder the operation?
Yeah, so we did again, Jacob Catt with Key Resources, we did an evaluation of what our projected parking demands are going to be. And the parking that we currently have proposed on site, we think to be adequate for those needs, looking at a 2-field rotation with teams coming and going. Again, one of the conditions being that, you know, related to tournaments, I think that was the main concern, and one of the conditions that we specifically excluded in our parking evaluation. So we're not looking at having, you know, 12 or 16 teams here at one period of time. And we're looking at something where the standard operations is going to be 4 teams that are going to be cycling through.
I'd like to ask another question. When is this going back to the Planning Commission?
So if we were to garner a conditional use approval, we would be starting on our construction drawing documents, which takes a period of time to prepare, as well as there's a tangential permitting course for the joint permit application for erosion sediment control through Allegheny County Conservation District and DADP. So we have in our response to the Planning Commission comments, we had a preliminary schedule included in there. I don't know exactly when we would be back in front of specifically, but our hope was somewhere in that sort of March timeframe to be in front of planning again, and then ultimately back to Borough Council, and that would be for the land development application. So that would be somewhere in that March 2021 application period. But again,
thank you.
If I can interrupt, this is the only time you'll actually go to mayor and council. The planning commission has final say on the site plan.
Okay. Yeah, so it'd be that
Sorry.
March time period.
Thank you so much. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Sapp,
I'll wait. I have to ask Chris one question. You took roll call before I was able to interject and ask Chris a question. Mayor
I
Calabrese?
apologize. Please go.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Blackwell, tell me, what is your thoughts on the soccer field?
I think for Penn Hills, we're always going to welcome new recreation possibilities, new opportunities for recreation. This particular property is located right adjacent to our Penn Hills Park, Friendship Park, another 150 acres of vacant parkland owned by Penn Hills. I think that, it's a valley. It's a lot of work. I think that the developer has a lot of work ahead of them, but I think that we would never turn down a recreation opportunity for Penn Hills. But I think, as you mentioned earlier, if you do the math, 160,000 cubic yards, if one truck holds 20 cubic yards, that's 8,000 trucks. So I just in your head, you're doing the math and thinking, wow, so it's a lot, but I think there's been other times where even the development down in Oakmont on the water there, there was a time they were looking to come here to do the opposite, which was cut the top off of a hill on Indiana Road because they needed to fill. So in these types of developments, this will be an opportunity to place fill, there's going to be people that need to distribute, find a place to place fill, and this might give them that opportunity. But the answer to your question is, I don't think Penn Hills would ever turn down, the possibility of recreational opportunities. And then I think too, we've also, through these conditions and meeting with the Planning Commission and with the developers, Mr. Foligno, Mr. Cat, we made it clear that if we're going to do this, we want it to be first class. We want restrooms, we want a concession stand, we want parking, we want landscaping, and I think that's important. And Mr. Cat mentioned, after their discussion, they're talking about concession stand. There's no sewers available here. We don't want porta johns though. We want this to be a real facility, so that there's some real cost involved in doing this. So I think that it's this isn't just going to be filling the site. That we want a first class soccer facility, and I think that's what we're going to get. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. Well, I was excited just to see sidewalks work. So thank you so much for that. All right.
Sounds like Mr. Cat and Mr. Foligno have put a lot of thought into this, and I'm sure that they're conscious of the cost. I don't think they would be coming forward if they weren't conscious of that.
And I may interject something, Mayor.
Yes, please do.
Some of Mr. Tony Foligno's projects before, and they're first class. He does great work. Him and his family have been in business probably 50 years, if I'm not mistaken, right, Tony? And they've done wonderful things throughout different communities in Allegheny County.
Likewise, I recognize the reputation.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
on item 6B, Deputy Mayor Sapp,
Yes.
Councilman Pecora,
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese,
Yes.
Councilman Petrucci,
Yes.
Councilman Getzey.
Yes.
6B approved.
I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
May I get a motion on ordinance 7A?
Mayor, I'll make a motion of ordinance 7A, ordinance 2681 and 2021, restricting no parking on the entire length of Colorado Street on both sides of the roadway.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comment from council?
I have a comment. If it becomes a problem with green burial, we do something to, and I know, Mayor, you asked this question, give him a pass. I don't want to see Pete Williams and Green Burial have a problem with parking down there. So there has to be a little bit of lenience on when they have a funeral down there. You gotta be able to park. Somber time is in, and we don't want people to be put out because they can't park. That's just I just wanted to throw that out there.
And I'd like to agree with you on that, John. Is there any other alternative parking available or couldn't be developed?
Yeah, I'd like to ask if we could, is it okay if we just do one side of the street with no parking?
There's an idea. Good idea.
Who can answer that question?
Chris?
I don't mute myself. I'm sorry. I think that you're familiar. You know, this went to the Planning Commission, and the chairman of the Planning Commission has personal experience with where he lives with Olympic pool and spa, and they have swimming tournaments there, and it's caused a lot of problems with. You know, we for many years we've had issues with parking on the street on Twin Oak and Cimarron, all through the neighborhood. Now, in the defense of Mary Sullivan in the Olympic pool, she has the parking, but that first car that doesn't go down the driveway, you know, the first car that parks, the next person goes, oh, there must not be parking down there, and all of a sudden the next thing you know, there's cars all over the park. So I think that there was a lot of discussion about this, and I think, you know, Mr. Catt also in his testimony tonight, he talked about how he believes that we've already said no tournaments. He's already agreed that they won't have tournaments there. And then he also believes that he has enough parking, 102 parking spaces is enough for the number of games, and what they sort of did a whole calculation of how much parking they need. So, but I know that, like, you know, Meg Balsamico and the Planning Commission, Meg Balsamico was very thorough. You see by her conditions, working on this and the discussions at the Planning Commission. So I don't want to take away from that. But you know, maybe it's something where it's either, is it one side of the street, or is it something that if there's a problem, we bring it back? You know, like, you know, I think what's happening is we're anticipating a problem that because of another facility, but I don't want to take away from the Planning Commission had a lot of discussion about this. There was, I believe there was a considerable amount of discussion, and so, you know, but maybe Mr. Catt could say, like, you know, maybe you could speak to it if, you know, I think that he believes they have enough parking. And then the other thing is that Hunter Road is a state road. So we don't have jurisdiction or the ability to put no parking on Hunter Road. I don't know if the state would do that. So that's why there's this gap where we're actually talking about Colorado Street, which is around the bend from this facility. But I just want you to know that there was a lot of discussion about this. And so, but it was brought to the Traffic Safety Committee by the Planning Commission. It was recommended that they get an ordinance before you by the Planning Commission. This was not something where residents came up and complained or something like that. But that's where it came from. Mr. Catt, I wasn't actually.
Chris, I have a question, Chris.
Yes.
Chris, it's Scott. I have a question.
Yeah.
I understand the 9 conditions that they have to abide by under the conditional use. But my question is, would it be possible, or maybe is it permissible for the mayor and council to consider this as a project's further along? Like, as you said, it's anticipating a problem, but you're also, it sounds like the work that's going to be involved to get the soccer fields done might take a while. Does this have to happen right now, or could it happen after the soccer fields are built? Is that possible for the mayor and council to view it that way?
Yeah, I believe it is. And the solicitor might be able to chime in on whether, like, can you remove condition number 9, I believe it is, right?
Well,
you know,
I wouldn't even say remove it. I'm just saying, could they not consider it after the fields are built? We know that it's going to happen and it's further down the road. That was my question.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you know, mayor and council, I believe, could table this ordinance.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear anything. Can we do one person? Can we please do one person at a time?
Okay, well, how about this? Can we table it, Scott, until after the thing is built? Scott?
I think that was kind of what I was hinting at. That was my question. I think Chris was indicating that you can.
Okay, and we should do that. If everybody's in agreement, I mean, that would make Pete a little bit with his green burial. We'll just see how bad it is. We could do that.
I would like to see the site, just to get an idea of what this is. It's hard to visualize. And I also have a question to Chris. Is it possible that some type of signs could correct that problem?
Yeah, I think both of those ideas. First of all, as far as like tabling, mayor and council have tabled ordinances before, and including parking ordinances, and had them looked at further. So I don't think that's, that you can certainly do that. You've already approved you're already approved the conditional use, but I think it could be looked at later. And especially with this discussion, we're all trying to resolve a problem. And then as Mr. Getzey says, maybe it could be, maybe there is signage, or, even the soccer facility, where it's made clear by the participants that go there that you're not allowed to park on outside of the facility, but I think we've all had children that, our kids all swam at local pools and everything, and we're all familiar with how you park all over the, cars are all over the place. It's hard to avoid. It's really hard to avoid. But I think in this case, the developer has done their best to estimate how many people are going to be there, and they've proposed parking to accommodate that. But I think
I don't think it's an issue with the developer. I think I'd like to see the site and think about alternatives. I don't think it's a developer issue. I just like to see the site, and we'll be talking about this in the future, I believe.
Well, it sounds like everyone pretty much is saying we need to have some more information, and we certainly don't want to interfere with green burial while this is being constructed. So may I get a motion to table?
I'll make a
Ordinance 7A.
I'll make a motion to table.
Mayor Calabrese.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. May I get a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
On the motion to table, Councilman Pecora,
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese,
Yes.
Councilman Petrucci,
Yes.
Councilman Getzey,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sapp.
Yes.
Okay, motion tabled.
Thank you.
thank you.
May I get a motion on number 8A under approvals and appointments?
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion for A, approval of 2021 recreation program calendar.
Second.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second the motion.
Second.
Any comment from council? Roll call.
Mayor Calabrese,
Yes.
Councilman Petrucci,
Yes.
Councilman Getzey,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sapp,
Yes.
Councilman Pecora.
Yes.
8A approved.
Thank you. As we move to 8B, approvals and appointments, let me say before we go further, it is really my distinct honor and privilege to request of council an individual that I would like to nominate this evening. I am presenting before council Liza King, born and raised in Penn Hills. She's now has been a resident for 65 years and a homeowner for 37 years. She has a baccalaureate degree in journalism and communications from Point Park College. She was a reporter and then an editor-in-chief in one of the 2 local newspapers primarily covering the Penn Hills area. She worked for 6 years as an associate professor of journalism. 9 years as the full-time executive director of the Penn Hills Chamber of Commerce. She's presently the chief of staff for State Representative Tony DeLuca. She is a founding member of the Penn Hills Unity and Community Days. She is a member of the original Penn Hills Economic Development Committee, Penn Hills Kiwanis, Penn Hills YMCA Board of Management, Girl Scouts of Western Pennsylvania Board of Directors, and the Board of Directors of Penn Hills High School Choral Parents. Her present volunteer experience is a Eucharistic minister at Christ the Divine Shepherd Parish, which is formerly known as St. Bartholomew's, and Mount Hope Cemetery Board of Directors. I'm very, very proud of Ms. King, and I think Penn Hills is very, very lucky to have someone of her caliber. Accordingly, I would please ask that I get a motion to appoint Liza King to the Penn Hills Planning Commission for a term ending in December 31st of 2021.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I'll make a motion.
I'm sorry, I thought, yes, Councilman Petrucci.
I'll make a motion to appoint her.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second the motion.
Thank you. Any comment from council?
I'd like to welcome her back to the planning department, and I think she'll bring a bit of expertise to it with her credentials that she has. I think she'll be very, very welcome.
Thank you, Councilman. Any further comment from council?
Mayor Calabrese, I'd like to say Ms. King is a wealth of information about Penn Hills, and she was very good before on the board, and so I'm so sure that the board is going to be excited that she has been reappointed. So I'd like to say welcome.
Roll call. I'm sorry, any further comment? Roll call, please.
On item 8B, Councilman Petrucci,
Yes.
Councilman Getzey,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sapp,
Yes.
Councilman Pecora,
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, her appointment is approved. Congratulations.
Welcome aboard.
Mayor Calabrese,
Yes.
this is Liza. I just want to thank you and all of the members of council for for supporting my appointment, and I won't let you down. Thank you for the confidence that you've placed in me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any reports from council?
I have 2 items.
Thank you, Mr. Getzey.
My first item is 2 meetings ago, we tabled the bed and breakfast zoning issue. I'd like to know where that stands. I raised a question about it at the last meeting. My question was, are these bed and breakfast facilities counted as businesses, or are they counted as residents for tax purposes? Or is this on the agenda, or is this, where does this stand, and what are we going to do about it?
I can answer that, Mayor, if you like.
Sure.
Okay. There's been no change to the ordinance that was presented to council. So planning developed an ordinance to regulate those enterprises. And so what you have before you is exactly what we have. We've made no changes to the proposed ordinance. And the second part of your question, if I think I understand it correctly, for real estate tax purposes, real estate taxes don't differentiate between residential and commercial. So that building presumably has a millage and has an assessment assigned to it. So if you look at the county website at a residential property, it's going to tell you what their taxes would be. You could figure that out. In terms of a business enterprise, I think that would, I don't think that they would pay us a business tax for that endeavor. I don't believe. I think they would have to pay federal and state taxes, but I don't know that it would. We have a business privilege tax on sales, and I'm not so sure that would reach that, Councilman Getzey. But there's been no change to the ordinance. The ordinance that we proposed and we gave to council, we've made no subsequent changes to it. So what you have is what we're looking at right now.
All right, another issue I have with that is I don't know how many there are. I don't know where they are. I don't know who has them. But I think there could be an impact on the neighborhood in terms of services. If you're bringing more people in, is this going to potentially, will we need some more medical services? Will we need fire protection? Will we need police protection? What impact is this going to have on the neighborhood in terms of that, in terms of parking? Is there a business privilege tax that we have to consider? I think there's a lot of questions about this, and it's been silent, and I'd like to know more about it. Do we have them registered? Are they registered in any way?
I think that's part of the point of the ordinance is so that, we know right now people are operating them already, so we really need to get them under control. I think if we have the ordinance, that gives us sort of teeth to make sure that everything is done properly.
What about my potential for, increased demand on our public services? Parking.
May I speak, Mayor?
Yes, please.
I think these would be considered like any other home occupation, of which Penn Hills has hundreds, if not 1,000 home occupations. And especially with COVID now, you can imagine all the people that are working from home. But Penn Hills has auto mechanics, hairdressers, doctors, dentists, caterers, all working from home. And in fact, I would guess there's many home occupations on your streets where you all live, and hopefully you're not aware of it. It's the idea is that it remains a single family home. Now, as far as taxes, Allegheny County has a hotel tax. When you rent an Airbnb, when you go through those websites, you pay taxes, things like that. But as far as, and like any other business, you pay taxes just like any other business. But as far as the changing the neighborhood or something like that, it's the premise of the ordinance, the idea of the ordinance is that it's using a room that's available in your home that doesn't have a child living in it anymore, or it's an opportunity for people to rent out space short term, and it shouldn't impact your neighborhood at all.
But what about the additional services? If you're bringing people in, we have no idea how many are brought in. We're going to keep track of that. And Mr. Blackwell, in addition, the oversight that you had written into that zoning issue, I don't think it's possible to carry out. How could you track somebody in their time they're spent away from there?
Well, we already, like I said, we have hundreds of home occupations operating. Before the zoning hearing board are probably 3 or 4 home occupations a month that go before the zoning hearing board. And then as far as a no impact home occupation, working out of your home is an office. That's actually required by the state. That's state law that allows you to work out of your home. But the idea here is that if I have 4 people living in my house now, presumably, and then my children move away and now I have a room that's available, I'm not increasing the burden on any services that weren't living there before. And then if I have a house that I don't live in, say my house is vacant, and I have a family that stays there for the weekend, but the house is vacant the rest of the week, there's no increase in the amount of services. There's no family, there's nobody living there. So the idea is that it's a short-term stay of a home, and it should remain as a single-family home. When you see these home businesses, they're allowed a 1 square foot sign. That's already, like all these businesses that we have, many people don't actually want the sign. They don't want it advertised that there's a business. We have daycares, we have all kinds of businesses that operate out of homes, and they don't have impacts on or minimal impacts on the neighborhood with a daycare. But and we regulate, we inspect those and we regulate them, and we do a pretty good job, I think, of keeping a track on our home businesses.
Is this going to come up for council approval soon? Is this going to be on the agenda for approval? Because it was tabled and we haven't done anything on it. So as far as I know, it's not an approval.
Well, so the last time that it came up, there were just so many questions. I think one of the things that I would like to do in this new year is to have workshop meetings, and let's have some dialogue with residents. Let's have dialogue with our professional staff. I don't think that many people realize Penn Hills is not necessarily rare, but we're very special in that we have professional staff, we have professional administration. You know, we have our council meetings once a month. I would love to periodically, if not every month, at least have a meeting on these issues so that we can have real dialogue. Because you know, it would not make sense to just put that on the agenda right now when there's been no change to it and we haven't had real dialogue yet. So that's one of the issues that perhaps we could have at a workshop. It doesn't make sense to
Okay.
put it on right now.
My final comment on this is, if it's important enough to require an amendment to zoning and an oversight provision, that makes me uncomfortable with the whole situation, that we need to do that. It's important enough to have a zoning amendment and regulations. I think it's important enough to hear more from residents, to hear more about how this works, to get an idea of what's out there and what are we getting into. And that's all I have to say on it at this time.
I agree with you. Any further report from council?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilman.
first of all, I think we skipped one. I don't see it on our itinerary, but it should be items for consideration that was missed on our list. But maybe that can be added for next time.
That, you know, Councilman, that was my error when I made the agenda, I believe.
That's okay.
I had a second comment here.
Can I finish my first one, Jim?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
No, not yet.
You took my turn there.
No, I just, my fellow colleagues, I want to discuss something with you all that I brought up 4 months ago. And when I brought it up the first time 4 months ago, I heard, well, we need to wait until January. What's the rush, John? I need to do more research on this. Well, it's January and it's 4 months past and I don't hear a peep of what anybody wants to talk about with this, a situation where I want to put 2 more council members on and have them elected to different wards. Now, just so you all know, I reached out to one of the greatest Democratic leaders of Penn Hills had ever had. This gentleman was the best Democratic chairman we ever had. And he was an advocate of what I'm trying to get across, and he is still an advocate of this today. His exact words were, the articles in the paper, the progress, speak to what I feel today. He is reaching out to us and he will come and help us through a transition on this. And you all know what I'm talking about. Everybody knows him per se. Him and the representative for the Republicans at that time, McClellan, in 1973, were both against what they did to Penn Hills. Matter of fact, they thought 9 commissioners would be better elected for this community because of the vast amount of population at that time and how large the community was. So please, let's put an ordinance together and get it back to where we can have proper representation, like myself and those 2 leaders back in 1973. And one of them you all know, one of the best Democratic minds we've ever had in Penn Hills, and you all agree to that, said,
Well,
is John Venta. He agrees, and he's an advocate for putting this back together the way it was. So let's get an ordinance.
You've recently spoken with John Vento and he said that's his current position?
That is his current position. He said the newspaper articles speak for himself. His newspaper articles back in February 7th, 1973. Read them all over. They're all up the library. Speak for his opinion on this.
So you're referring, I'm sorry, just to be clear, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You're not saying that's his current position, that was his position 50 years ago?
He said today, that is his opinion today is the same as it was back in 1973. That is correct.
Thank you.
Let me pitch in that I support what John's talking about. And I think we ought to get the ordinance together and get moving on this. And I think a lot of the community are supportive of this and would like to see this happen. Thank you.
I mean, this is
Any further reports?
I have another item to bring up. Are we finished with that one? Are we finished with
Councilman Petrucci, are you through?
I just wanted to say, you know, I've done some social media advertising, if you lack for a better word on this, and over 2,000 people have read it, have all positive responses. We have emails documenting them. If the council would at a later time would like to see them. And let's not forget one other thing, okay? And I think, Madam Mayor, you were at my informational meeting, that when this 11 people commission was put together to do the home rule charter and make a decision on whether to vote at large or by ward, one of the items that they considered in a pro of voting at large was representation of minority groups and parties are not guaranteed. And as I said before, that is a form of systemic racism, and I don't agree with anything that they did back then. This should be rectified, at least on our count. We are the new watchdogs in the future of this community, and that it needs to be rectified. I don't agree with it.
Councilman,
Thank you,
okay,
John.
Councilman Getza, you said you had one more issue?
Yes, I want to bring up the point of when I voted negatively on budget approval for this reason. Since I've been campaigning, or since when I campaigned and since I've been in office, which is now a year, I've been going through the budget and the audits. And I feel there is no wrongdoing. I want to emphasize it. I'm not talking about wrongdoing, but I think our budget needs to be updated. I think we need more narrative to explain things that are going on. There are items in the budget that are mentioned, but without any explanation. It's hard for me to track budget balances. Last year, we talked about a three-step deficit program, and I just can't follow the trend of this. So I'm questioning. I'm going to provide my comments in some form, either email or hard copy, to be considered. Now, Mayor, we discussed this earlier, and I think we need to have some workshop meetings where we can discuss this and get answers. I've been told maybe I need some accounting training. Well, this isn't all accounting. This is narrative. This is explanation. So I will be submitting this before the next council meeting. I'd like to see some action on it, particularly having some workshops to discuss this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further reports from council?
Yes, Mayor Calabrese, it is the Deputy Mayor. I am going to proudly report that our EMS team have had their first round of COVID-19 vaccines. So I'm so excited about that. Very happy that they took that first round on December 29th from UPMC. So super excited. Want to keep them safe, and looking forward to their second round. The other thing I want to read is a bit of a letter that was received giving our EMS department major praise. So I'm only going to read bits and pieces of it, and I'm going to take out the patient's name. It says, to the Penn Hills municipality, I'm writing this letter to thank the paramedics who recently were dispatched to our home to take my husband to Forbes Regional Hospital. Please forward my letter. I do not know the headquarters or the dispatch center to send this letter to directly, but I'd like to acknowledge the great job that the paramedics did. The paramedics were dispatched twice recently. I am very grateful, and I want to acknowledge just how much I think of the paramedics and what a fine job they each do. They arrived promptly and immediately to help my husband. They were very professional, very acknowledgeable, and so very kind and considerate in getting my husband prepared to take him to the hospital. The attention that my husband received was far beyond my expectations. So I just want to commend and give a hand clap to our EMS department, because I only hear great and wonderful things about our department. And I'm so excited and proud and honored when I see them out on the road going to handle their job, because I know when they get to the hospital, the emergency rooms always commend what a fine job Penn Hills does. So again, great job. That's it.
I'll second that, Deputy Mayor.
Yes,
For sure.
good presentation.
Thank you, thank you. Councilman Pecora, did you want to say anything? I'm sorry, you were mute.
No, I'm just interested in Mr. Vento's expertise on having 7 or 9 districts. Maybe we could have him on the agenda and he could let us know what he feels about it.
I think it's a great idea.
I'd like to hear from him if he would volunteer to, get on the agenda. That would be interesting.
I think that would be great. I wish your father was here because I had the newspaper articles that your father said too.
Okay, Councilman.
They were a long
I
time ago.
think this is Councilman Pecora's turn.
That's about it. I would like to see what his opinion is on changing back the wards as composed to home rule.
Okay, thank you. So, unfortunately, you can't see that I have a very sparkly top on. This is my New Year's. I'm very excited about our New Year together. We had a crazy 2020 together, and unfortunately, we couldn't always be together. We couldn't do as much as we had hoped. But I have, greatest respect for every one of the members on council. I love working with each and every one of you. We don't always agree, but boy, everybody on here surely does care about Penn Hills. I can tell every resident I am confident in that. As Councilman Getzey said, he and I have talked about this numerous times, and we both agree there should be what we call a workshop meeting, because if we're really following the charter, it can be sort of annoying because there is not the back and forth and the dialogue that we would like, because the meetings really don't call for that. So I would like to add an additional meeting for workshops so we can talk about some of the issues that were brought up here and other issues that come forward. So I'm looking forward to starting a new year with sort of a different format or more meetings. In addition to that, next thing I would like to say is I am so very, very proud and excited to go into this new year. Budget is, if you haven't heard by now, there will be no layoffs this year. We did not raise taxes. We have a surplus. We really, truly are moving in the right direction. So this is very, very exciting to move this year. Something I thought I would never be excited about, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I am, and I see he's still on here, Rick Minsterman. Some of you may have been part of the presentation, or I'm sorry, saw the presentation beforehand. And if you did not, there is no way that I can say it as eloquently as, and no way can I speak about sewage as exciting as Mr. Minsterman makes it. But truly, Penn Hills, we just have, a fabulous infrastructure. We have so many, we've had grants, and then we take a look at paving. We've done over $1 million in paving. You take a look at the bank up on Frankstown Road. They purchased that property for over $1 million. They have spent over $1 million building it. We really, truly are moving in the right direction. And I hope every resident is proud of where we are. You look at the folks on the screen, we have a professional administration. So it's not that you just have to depend on mayor and council. We really do have a good support system. And I just can't say enough. It is so exciting, the direction that we're moving in, and just our everyday, day-to-day living, the values of our homes, the values of our neighborhoods. And I'm so proud to be working with all of you and to move forward into 2021. And so I say Happy New Year to all of you. And with that, may I get a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion for.
Thank you. Have a very good night, everyone.
You also.
Good night.
Happy New Year, everyone. Good night.
Happy New Year, everybody.